Hi, this is Denis Taaffe. I'm in my home studio, and I just got done completing my 248th album called Modern Rock Guitar Vol.248 Illusions. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is the fact that I recorded this entire album using a MoTU Audio Express audio interface. And here it is. If you want to take a look at it here. The way I did this is basically, this little audio interface has two mic preamps here and here, so I mic'd both amps here. And because basically it was recorded live, really. I was basically playing, and what was coming out of the amps was just being picked up by the microphones into the computer for further editing, as far as bringing up levels and that kind of thing. Mastering, if you like. And in fact, I think that's about all I used, really. Yeah, I didn't use any of the analog inputs, surprisingly. And for the analog inputs, I believe that there are two, and I didn't use them, though I could have. Had I been, using a drum machine or that kind of thing, I would have used these two. And then for the bass emulation sound, in this case, it was coming out of the amplifier. However, depends how I'm doing my bass emulation. All my bass sounds are actually guitar dropped an octave and then looped. And depending which looper I'm using, it either gets mixed back into the guitar amplifiers, or I have to use a separate input. And but what I want to talk to you about for the MoTU Audio Express here, it's a really great sounding unit. It's basically, to explain the box really quickly, it basically has two mic preamps on the back, two line ins. Then it has 4 line outs, 4 stereo line outs. So really 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So I'm sorry, 4 mono line outs or 2 stereo pairs. Then it has Firewire interface or USB, SPDIF in and out digital, and these are inputs. And it could be an output as well. And then MIDI in and out. So in doing volume 248, I really only used the 2 mic pre's, because everything was coming out of the guitar amps. Had I been using drums, and if I was doing bass differently, I would have had to have used the 2 mic pre's, the 2 analog inputs, and I would still need 1 track for the bass. Which I could do either from SPDIF here, like that, or use another unit. Okay, now, there's some sap on YouTube, and he has a defective unit, right, and it squeals and does this. Well, I got on YouTube to find out about this unit, and I kept running across these videos of how horrible the unit is as far as squealing and pops and crackles and all this stuff. Only to discover, wait, there are 12 videos from the same guy with the same unit. So I'm telling you from firsthand experience now, to totally disregard that guy. He's not credible at all. I don't understand making one video, but then to do 12 videos of the same defective unit, you know, it's just smear. It's a smear campaign, really. My experience was that these just sounded so very good. I didn't have any problems. Now, I should tell you, I was running XP, being powered by the FireWire port here. So one cable into a Windows XP Service Pack 3, so a little bit older unit. And basically, I just ran that into SoundForge. And with the QMix software, I was able to easily mix it. There wasn't much to mix, though, to be honest with you. Basically left and right stereo. But I really, from what I read and things, people say, oh, I don't know, you know, I've heard MoTU have noisy mic preamps. This wasn't the case with me, and you can listen to the recordings. They're very clean. I really didn't hear that, a bunch of noise or what have you. I did hear a little tiny bit of hiss that was removed with a noise reduction plugin. However, I should tell you, it's probably coming from the guitar amps. You know, amps are not super quiet. And the reason I didn't go direct is because I want that guitar sound that you really can't get direct. You know, they're trying, but it's not quite the same type of sound. Okay, the other thing is ease of use. I mean, I couldn't believe how simple this was. It was solid as a rock as far as connection and running the QMix software, which I really like. Listen, I have, on the same computer, I have a patch mix, which is because of an EMU card, and it was called Patch Mix. And Patch Mix was a pain in the butt. And why? Because it was so complicated. That's why. You know, you had to send to this to get it to play. I mean, once you got it figured out, it was okay. And it's solid and that kind of thing. However, to me, the MoTU QMix is just great. It's just very simple, straightforward. And in fact, here's one thing with the MoTU Traveler that I could never do before in previous album recordings. And that was, I set up a monitor mix that went into headphones. And I actually had a metronome going. And in fact, I do take it back. I used the two mic preamps, but I also used one of the line ends from a drum machine to give me a metronome. And so in my monitor mix, which didn't go to the actual main recording, but in my monitor mix, I heard this metronome. And also what I was recording at the same time. Usually this would take a lot of setup, you know, ahead of time, pretty complicated. Here, 1 minute I was done with the QMix software. Can't recommend it highly enough. I suppose on my wish list are two things. One, that it had one extra analog input, but that's fine. You know, really, when you use the two mic preamps, the two line ends, and then you have the SPDIF, right? So if you have another recorder or a mixer, something like that, you could run it into that. You know, I mean, I have these old Roland BS890s, and if I really had to, I could run my bass line into it, and then into the SPDIF, and that would give me the extra track I needed. I don't understand how people can record with just the 2 mic preamps with no line-ins at all. But that's just me. It depends on the situation. In this case, a lot of times, besides the monitor mix with the metronome, really that's what I was using, was just 2 mic preamps. Super quiet, it was super solid, never gave me any problems whatsoever. And what I was really happy about is the sound quality was really great. It was really, really fantastic. I mentioned that there was one other thing that I had wished for, and that is the new units, the new MoTUs. In fact, from, I think, the 828X, I think, yeah, and the 896, they have something called V-limit, which is basically overload protection of the inputs. It's a limiter, hardware limiter on the mic preamps. Because on guitar, if you're not careful and, you really accent something and it comes out very loudly, it can distort the mic preamp. So that would be something very handy to have. Now, this could be solved, though, with a hardware, compressor limiter. The other thing is, it was very nice on the front panel. You had these knobs, and you could set the levels that way as well, which was very, very simple. Now, I did a lot of research, and what I found is that I don't know if it's because it's an older unit or because it's been discredited, that they're actually selling fairly cheaply. Inexpensive. But, I think the thing, it gives you exactly what you need. I found, no more, no less. For example, I have a MoTU Traveler. It's got all kinds of stuff I'll never use, an AES bus and ADAT. I'll probably never use that, any of those stuff. And the external word clock and so on. Basically, this is just a very simple unit. I think anybody would be super happy with this one. And I really like the QMix DSP, especially coming from Patch Mix. Unfortunately, Patch Mix looks old and outdated in comparison, but it's also so much more complicated. At least it was for me. If you asked me to set up a monitor mix using Patch Mix, I wouldn't know where to begin. And it always caused me problems here or there. So for me, the MoTU QMix software is very well done. And that's the thing. The older interfaces, other than the vMix limiting, at least for me, would be the only thing that I'd really want any different. Because the new ones are a lot more money, and really they offer things that I really wouldn't use. Built-in effects, for example. I don't know. My EMU card had built-in effects, and to this day I haven't used one of them, not one. So, but anyway, it has the built-in effects, it has EQ, but I thought, if you're going to do EQing, you do that in your DAW software and not in the hardware interface, So then, they say, okay, well, it's got, better converters, and so on, and I don't know, because I'll tell you, I have a MoTU Ultralight, MK1, version 1, and about the same. One other thing that I did try is with my original MoTU Ultralight MK1 and the MoTU Audio Express is that you can combine the two. That's right. It's very, very simple. In QMix, you basically just run FireWire into both units. QMix sees both, and it actually gives you two different QMix screens. And then if you go into your DAW, your digital audio workstation deal, software, all those inputs are there for both units. And you don't have to mess around with, trying to combine word clocks and things. Now, this is on a PC. I don't know about a Mac. I think you have to use a combiner or something. I don't know. And here, just one of them will use the master clock, and the other one will use that clock as well. It's very simple to do. And there, I basically expanded. I had all the inputs and outputs of both units available, which is great. And I would find it very impressive if you could tell which unit is which, sound quality wise. I certainly really like the MoTU series. I think they're well priced in comparison to the sound quality without being ridiculous in price. I know some of the Universal Audio stuff, goes $600, $1,000 or more, much more, especially if you want a lot of inputs and outputs. Here, really, if you took really even one of the MoTU Ultralight, you have to remember the first MoTU Ultralight has 2 mic preamps, 4 analog inputs, and then on top of that, ADAT, which could give you another 8 inputs. SPDIF, there's 9 inputs, and actually they count SPDIF as 2 because it's stereo. So that's 10 inputs right there on the original MK Ultralight. One thing I did find on the original Ultralight is that the LCD display goes bad. Eventually they just die and need to be replaced. I just think for a step up in quality from the really budget, kind of entry level audio interfaces, that you really may want to consider looking at an older MoTU interface. And I guarantee you that you'll be pleased with the sound quality. There's not much more I can say about it except that it's just such a simple unit. And the best part is it can be used standalone. You don't even need a computer. Remember that monitor mix that I did with the metronome? You could do that live. Not only is sending a mix, it can do up to 4 different mixes. So you could have one mix to the PA, one mix into headphones, right, or in-ear monitors, and then one mix to wedges, if you'd like, right, or to a recorder, right, to record your performance for yourself or what have you. Yeah, if you need the inputs, you can even combine 2 together. So if you have an old one and you get another old one, you can combine the 2 or a new one and an old one, that kind of thing. So anyway, highly recommended. And as far as compatibility, I have to say I've only used it with FireWire. The Audio Express can do FireWire and USB, and I've only tried the FireWire. And I've tried it with Windows 7, 64-bit, and Windows XP, and had no problems with either. The old Ultralight was only FireWire. Now, I'm not sure about the USB. I can't vouch for USB, if maybe that's why people are having problems with these units. I don't know. I don't really like USB, to be honest. I don't trust it. And the reason is, I remember years ago they had a USB printer, and it just wouldn't be recognized. The USB would just not see the darn unit. And it turns out you had to install the software first, and then plug in the unit at the exact same time or at the right time, and so on. Whereas FireWire, I found it very simple. So anyway, that's been my overall experience with the MoTU Audio Express. And if you want to hear what it sounds like, go ahead and I'll put some of my album that I recorded with it at the end of this video, and you can decide for yourself. For me anyway, I really was very pleased with the sound. I felt it gave the overall sound a real smooth sound, very quiet, smooth, very clear sound, and I had no issues with it at all. All right, see you next time. Bye.